Good morning, folks. It's Will Diego from beautiful Tijuana, Mexico. We're going to be talking about something different this morning. It's February. Okay, having a few technical difficulties trying to edit out the original soundtrack and put in my new recording of my voice. But here we go. Continue with my thought of the my premise of a major idea that everything, every animal, every person on this world has got to produce more than they consume, or you're going to perish and die. If you belong to a group and you're helping that group survival, like a lion den, a lion herd, a lion prey. Let's figure out what it's called here. The Lion Pride. I got to remember my Lion King movie. The Pride. You either help the pride survive. You don't have to be out there actually catching fresh meat for the pride, but you've got to take care of the young or somehow help them catch meat or make babies for more lions, because the everybody knows the lion females, the lioness, are the ones that catch the majority of the meat for the pride, and the Lion King, he kind of just helps protect the pride and makes new babies. So that's one way to make more, produce more than you consume in this world. Yes, even making babies, you're producing more than you're consuming, because your offspring will then go out and multiply. If they're successful, they will continue the producing for you, and as they produce more and more, get stronger and more independent. Uh, Even with real children, human children, they help each other. The children help the older adults survive. So there's several ways of producing more than you're consuming. But eventually, when that stops happening in our old age and as our children move away and grow independent, then it goes away and pretty soon you die. At least the United States government has got a system where old people can live on through Social Security and your retirement, Medicare, and such. You're contribute. You contributed to the society, our society, when you were younger and stronger and smarter, and you built up a reserve of cash, retirement, we call it, or even if you're totally dependent on the government, our medical system does take care of you, but it it does eventually run out. The amount of care you receive does pretty soon it overcomes the value that you created when you were younger. As the United States government has a pretty good system. Other European countries have a system of taking care of their old people, but for the most part, when all the goods and services you provided for the group expire, run out, eventually you're going to die. Okay, let's hold on and see what this soundtrack sounds like. Okay, not bad, not bad. Working out my technical difficulties here so I can continue on with my thoughts about the situation of humankind and the animal kingdom as well here on this earth. Everything is limited. So we're talking about the law of survival, producing more than you're consuming on this earth, or you're going to perish and die. It's clear when you look at an individual animal that doesn't rely on its group. Uh, trying to survive on its own. Either it catches more food so that it can eat and continue its energy so it can catch more food, or it's going to perish and die. Uh, then, as you go, let's say, higher up on the hierarchy of survival, the survival group is you're contributing more to that group than you're consuming, and the group is sharing with you. As you share what you can contribute to the group shares back with you, basically until that diminishes. So there's lots of examples in nature. You can contribute to the group mentally or physically. Your experiences, your mental capability of sharing with the group how to protect itself or how to care for its young. You don't actually have to have the physical ability to go out and catch or find more food for the group. The group is depending on you to maybe take care of its young, while the stronger animals go out and catch the food or produce the food. Okay, getting my thoughts here. In my opinion, in my 66 years of life, what I've observed and learned is, to me, life is like a bell curve. You start out with nothing. You're born. You have nothing. You're totally dependent on your mother, and if you're lucky enough to have a father. You start with nothing. You start going up like a bell curve. Pretty soon, you're, able to work, start producing some kind of income, helping your family with little chores, paper route, working at McDonald's, something like that. you know, you're still driving the family car. Mama's giving you lunch and bus fare so you can go out into the world. And hopefully you get an education past high school, higher education, and you start becoming more valuable. And you start putting out your job resumes, and pretty soon you're no longer working at McDonald's. Maybe you're able to go to college full time, and maybe you work part time. And hopefully you get that higher degree to where when you really do hit the workforce, you can step out into the world with your first jobs, uh, making enough money to survive. Take my own example, I did work for McDonald's when I was in high school. Then I worked for Denny's and got more tips. I was able to get tips and waiter and making more and more money, going to college at the time. I went to the University of San Diego. I worked at the Denny's down the road. And, so I had my housing provided by the university with a part-time scholarship and also being a resident assistant, which is kind of like the being a university representative on my dorm wing. I was in charge of the safety of the other students that lived there in the dormitories at the university. So the beginnings of my law enforcement career started right there. Uh, it's kind of weird, I'm a student myself, but I'm responsible for the safety of other students, and some of them were not too nice. We had a guy dealing marijuana out of his dorm room, and when I tried to confront him about it, he showed me a picture of back east. Somebody was murdered. He had the news article pinned on his wall. And in a subtle way, he said, I'm responsible for that guy getting murdered. Don't mess with me. And this is like my first job, you know, right in college. But it was the beginning of my law enforcement career. My father was a border patrol in Southern California, where I grew up, San Diego, down on the Mexican border, next door to South San Diego and Tijuana. That's where I grew up. And so when I went to the University of San Diego, I took sociology classes. Uh, Everything was geared towards becoming a law enforcement officer, even though they didn't have the law enforcement degree or program. Sociology, psychology contributed to a degree that I could use in law enforcement. So eventually I got my bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology, which is perfect for a law enforcement officer. You know, we are dealing with different cultures, different backgrounds, trying to understand uh, how the human mind works, how we operate in a society with laws and rules. And believe it or not, um, after getting my bachelor's degree, almost immediately I was hired by the San Diego Police Department and went through their academy. And I got stationed down in South San Diego, right on the Mexican border with my dad. So here I am. I'm 22, 23 years old, working for the San Diego Police on the southern border, South San Diego. My dad was still a border patrolman at that time. I can remember a couple cases where, I ran into my dad. He'd caught a group of, or I would get a call. This little old lady hears noises in her backyard, and as a San Diego police, I would go investigate and look in the lady's backyard, and there's 20 people hiding in her backyard, standing around waiting for their ride north. And I'd call the Border Patrol to come get them, and here's my dad showing up to help process these people. So I did that for a few years. Lots of crime and action on the southern border, South San Diego. Joseph Wambaugh's book, Lions and Shadows, was all about this area, except he's a good author and, knew how to write an exciting book about the whole area. You know how authors are. They expound and excite, write exciting ways of explaining situations. But it was kind of like that. It was kind of just like the book. Lots of action. But I had grown up in a small community in South Dakota until I was 12 years old. But I was old enough to be pretty well, almost self-sufficient by the time I was 12 years old. I mean, back there in South Dakota, my dad had handed me a gun and said if I can go hunt animals down at the Big Sioux River before school, I could make some extra money. Like trapping a mink. At that time, they paid pretty good money, like $25 for a pelt, a mink pelt, to make mink coats. Not very, not very sustainable, but it was a lot of money at that time. Okay, now everything's changed. Big coats are outlawed. You don't see women wearing them anymore. Thank God. But yeah, here I am, 12 years old in the seventh grade, and going hunting by myself, a couple miles in the morning, down by the river, checking my traps that I'd set out, and I did. Eventually, I caught a couple mink. I think my brother even caught a couple mink. My younger brother, he was even younger than me and caught a couple mink on his own. $25 was a lot of money back in the 70s. So that was my beginnings of producing more than I was consuming. The, the law of survival. And of course, with that college degree, my first job after graduating from college at the age of 22, I believe, was the San Diego Police Department. And all of a sudden, I'm making $500 a week. Wow, that's a lot of money back in those days, the early 80s. And with that money, I was able to meet my first wife, who was in college, and we dated, we married. And her and I were pretty young and strong. So at first, we were managers of an apartment, getting free rent. I had my income. At that time, she was working kind of like odd jobs, so she had her income. And we were producing more than we were consuming. And I've always had kind of a different mindset about survival growing up in a big family, being the oldest of 8 children. I didn't care that much about my home surroundings. As long as I had a bed and basics, I was fine. So, but my wife was from a rich family. But she went along with me, and I had this idea that if we bought a boat, a larger boat, and lived on that boat for basically free. Well, nothing's free, but at that time there were free anchorages in San Diego Bay. So to make a long story short, we were living very cheaply on our boat in South San Diego Bay. I was working for the San Diego Police Department, and she was pregnant with our first baby, our first child. Very much producing more than we were consuming at that time. Okay, I'm coming up on 25 minutes worth of video. I want to keep these more short and to the point. I will continue my premise of survival on this earth is dependent on producing more than you are consuming on my next video. Thank you very much. Have a great day. God bless.